Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's show. We've got a very special guest, Nick Patterson, joining us tonight. Hope you are all having a lovely evening. Nick, how are you going?
Yeah, really good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So, Nick, most people, I guess, know you for in the movement for the assault that happened with the police. Also, the education that you provide for people with Lawful Me. However, we will get into that. But something that of particular interest for me is on the Peacemakers website. I noticed that you spoke, not that you spoke, but you've posted a lot of information around child trafficking, MkUltra, which is a huge issue, probably one of the biggest things that I see as a problem, not just in this country but in the world. And when I was listening to one of your webinars on Lawful Me, you and Dave Armstrong were chatting, and he actually mentioned that you guys were banned from going to the US because you were helping to stop child trafficking, and which I think is, the fact that you're doing that sort of stuff really sparked my interest. So I guess maybe start off by talking a little bit about why you started getting involved in that.
Well, it started. So my uncle was an abuse victim. He he was abused in a boys' home, Salvation Army boys' home, and the amount of corruption that he's had to endure trying to get justice is like I'm privy to it all because I speak to him all the time. I saw him today. So I was aware of the what's happening and how the courts. I'm not saying all of the courts are corrupt and every judge and magistrate's corrupt, but there is this corruption that exists, which enables people who are vile criminals doing the most heinous, depraved things to children to get away with it, or to not be able to for people to not be able to get justice. And if you just look at it by its fruits, right? So if you look at the policies that have been employed by, let's say, even the Victorian government here, in this, I mean, they protect and preserve pedophiles. They protect them. A friend of mine went to court when he was for a marijuana plant. Right. This is before I knew him, because I'm not into that scene or anything. And he was just telling me at a homeschool meeting. He said that there was a man who was it was his second time in front of that same judge for fiddling with kids, and he got the same penalty I did. He said for having a marijuana plant.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is insane.
And yeah, I've been hearing a lot about time and time again, just these people they're getting away with it. And how do we start to I don't know if you heard about Serena Tefaha. She's been speaking out a lot about these judges because she got her license revoked and everything because she was actually challenging them in court, and because she was involved with the case around Gracie Hughes. I know we sort of spoke about it a little bit before, but we need more people pushing back. And I think that when there's only one person standing up, it's really easy to just get rid of them or shut them down, but we need more awareness around it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Serene. So Serene is a friend of mine. We even, like, with my peacemaker group, we had to provide security for her because she was getting death threats
Wow.
during the time that she was trying to run that or launch that class action against the family court. She was getting death threats. People turning up to her house in uniform, but they weren't really police, and all sorts of weird things were happening. So, we were sending round the clock security people to back her up and protect her and keep her safe. Like, that's what we have to do to protect these people that put themselves on a limb, because it's like that game whack-a-mole where the head pops up and you smash it. You see it in the kids play it. As soon as someone pops their head up, the ruling class just want to smash it down, so that you can't get other heads to come up. As soon as
Mm.
one gets smashed, and then people
That's it.
see it and they go, "Whoa! I don't want to lose my license, and I don't want to be prosecuted by the legal services board, and lose my license to practice law. That's how I make a living. You know what? I'm not gonna tread there. I'm gonna be very careful what I say." But we need bold, courageous people, like the Bible says. In the old proverb, "The righteous are as bold as a lion." We're going to be like
Mm.
that. But it's hard because people are faced with fear first, fear
100%.
and doubt. And the fear and doubt, all that does is diminishes the man or the woman. So you think of us like as a battery, and I shared this in a talk just the other day. We're like a battery, not in the matrix context of being an electrical battery, but we're empowered, right? We have some
Mhm.
power, we have knowledge, we have discernment, we have spiritual gifts. And when you fill your mind with fear, which fear isn't from God, it's from the enemy,
Mhm.
it goes to war with your faith and belief. Then it brings its friend in doubt. And then doubt will go to war with your confidence and your courage. So that your confidence, courage, faith, and belief are now diminished. And then you don't really have any power. And that's what they do. This is how this ruling elite operate. This is why the mainstream media pushes fear. And when you start to get um, close to the mark and to exposing these people, they're gonna smash you. They're just gonna
Mm.
throw everything at you. So it requires a very courageous and strong, bold person like Serene, who's willing to go through that. And you know what? Like she didn't win the fight. What she did is she woke a lot more people up, and
Mm.
she's inspired them as to what's going on. So the spirit is in them, and they're like, truth. We've got to expose this. And now she's becoming a martyr for the cause. We just need more people who are willing to
Mm.
sacrifice something, because sacrifice is the measure of one's credibility.
100%. And you were talking about fear and in the biological, sorry, when you think about the brain as well, you know, it gets the tool of fear, we go into the R complex, which is the fight or flight. So
Mhm.
you are no longer experiencing any higher order thinking, any sort of intuitive thought or logical thought. It's like, right, I've got to protect myself, protect my livelihood, and you can't think straight. And so when you've got people that are essentially slaves in this system, because there are slaves in the system there are slaves that are people that are asleep, and even in the freedom movement, how free do you want to be? And I think the ultimate sacrifice is to get out there and just do the best you can. um in For me personally, it's just I am just like, I need to speak up for these children, because for me it's just like I've got this fire in my belly. I'm pissed off when I was like, yeah, that was the one thing that really got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a really powerful Bible verse that's really inspired me. And inspired just means to have the spirit in,
Mm.
and it's where it says, "Let your light so shine before men," or men and women, "that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." And when I think about that, I go, well, the light we read about is your conscience.
Mhm.
So it's something that's in us that's good, that comes from God. And then we've got this in us. And when we do, like emotion, the word emotion comes from the etymology is it means to move out. So what's within us, we move it out and we express it, and we do it. And people see it and they go, that resonates with me. I'm
Mm.
inspired. That's, you do something that comes from a place of love or integrity or honor, and people see it and they go, that's really good. I want to do that. And
Mm.
that inspires them. And that's how we let our light so shine. And that's how we glorify our Father in heaven, by being who we were created to be. But fear gets in the way. So until we can't do anything until we get people past the fear. But
Mm.
over time, fear becomes weak and people become empowered. That's why you see all of those, like if you look at those regimes that have operated with fear, and they've used that as their number one tool
Mhm.
to control people. Eventually, the people revolt and take over, because once you take everything from somebody, and
Mm.
there's nothing left but to preserve themselves and fight back. And
That's it.
that's what they do. I mean, like we're talking about, they're taking people's children. I mean, they're doing it in more of a general sense as well, where they're bringing in education programs, these with all of this inclusivity garbage, that to be inclusive, you've got to subject your children to being to learning about all the um, all of this satanic stuff. you got to have them wearing the rainbows. You've got to have them pretending and imagining that they're gay or transgender, and we've got to. And then they're bringing all the other stuff like giving them puberty blockers without your mother or father's consent behind your back. I'll give you an example. A mate of mine was over here and he was talking to me about. He's from Shepparton, and he goes, Nick, my 10-year-old son told me that he thinks he's gay. And I go, get him out of school. Just get him out of the school. It's just been, those ideas have been planted in his head. He's 10. He said, but Nick, I asked him why he thinks that way and how long he's been thinking this way. Well, he said, look, I think I'm gay because I don't like hanging out with the girls. Now, he's 10. He's 10 years old. So that's normal to not want to play with the girls because you want to go and smash things and, that's what you want to do. And the girls want to do pretty stuff, right? Not always. There's a crossover. But he's one of those kids, right?
Yeah.
And then he said, so his dad said, how long have you felt like this? He said, oh, a long time. He said, why haven't you told me? And then the kid said, well, the teacher told me not to tell you because you wouldn't accept me for it.
Incredible.
So it's across the board. This isn't. I mean, who are the policy makers? Well, they're the people that are pushing. The same people that are. And I'm not saying all of the policy makers, but the majority are the same people that are pushing this. All of this sick woke stuff on society. But they're also, they're involved in a lot of these other rituals and satanic. They're in a satanic cult.
100%.
You judge it by its fruit. The tree's known by its fruit, and if the fruit's rotten, it's a rotten tree.
And and because it's so inverted, they are almost like they use the fear of judgment. You're going to judge me now for being whoever I want to be. That sort of inclusivity bubble. It's insane. And if you say something that's out of line, it's that cancel culture straight away. You are transphobic, you're homophobic, the things that I've sort of spoken out about. And, it's incredible, the sort of hate you get just for speaking or having an idea that is not alongside with, I guess, what the government's pushing. And now I've got an interesting thing that I've been thinking about today and actually the last few days, because going back to MkUltra and all the studies that they've done, not just the study. When I mean studies, I mean like what they've done to children to split their minds in order to figure out how to control them, to create slaves. You look at that on the individual scale, and are we seeing MkUltra now on the mass scale?
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because if you think about how the mind works, and I look at it from a spiritual, like from the biblical context, it's all in there. In that Bible tells you, shows you how to understand what you are. If you look at it, like just look at, say, fantasy, right? Anything that's, let's just say, okay, that the things that we see in Disney and in fantasy are actually real. I'm not saying they are, but let's just say they are, or they were. But you've been told that this is fantasy. You can never know that to be true now, because the lie that it's fantasy blocks you from opening your mind to that being a reality and then understanding what this world is. So what they do is they put, so the lie is what blocks you from understanding the truth. That's why they give us lies. That's why the mainstream indoctrination system, which we call the education system, is the way it is, so that people never come to understand who and what they are. And I'll quote you something that's from the book Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and I share this a lot. And it's in the energy section of that book, and it represents the policy that was adopted by the Bilderberg Group in 1954 in their first ever Bilderberg meeting. And it says that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. It also says that the education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the mote of ignorance isolating the inferior class from the superior class is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower class individuals have little, if any, hope of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintain some measure of peace and tranquility for the ruling upper class. So that's how they think about us.
100%.
And we're just animals, and because we're the lower class, we have to be given the poorest kind of education. So just lies, because a lie is what blocks you from understanding the truth. If you can't hold on to the truth and a lie in the same space,
Mhm.
one's true, one's false. You can't. So that's why they fill us with garbage, so that we can never understand what this world is and who we really are.
And 100%. And also, when I was reading the book by Fritz Springmeier, How the Illuminati Create an Undetectable Total Mind Control Slave. And in that book, he talks about, like, his research is predominantly taken from the victims of mind control SRA. So that's how he's been able to gather all this information. And he says that the education that those receive, like, for example, in the Illuminati, are mainly audibly. They don't write a lot now because they've discarded a lot of this information in order to protect themselves, and which is really interesting because they also what was it called? Hold on, the false memory association. They also set that up in order to, going on a bit of a tangent, but well, I lost my point. the strat
You're talking
the,
about the Illuminati and how they use audible teaching as opposed to
that's
written.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So
I think
would you
there is something in that too, because most of you think culturally around the
yeah,
world they didn't do things just with writing. It mostly was stories, and this
right,
because a story. If you tell someone a story, and each image or symbol in that story represents something that that expands your mind and gives you understanding, that enables you to transfer a huge amount of information. Really, really, and you can write it down. But if it's taught verbally, it has a lot
right.
more impact to a lot of people. I know for myself, I find reading, I have to read things over and over to get the full gist of it, whether my wife
Me
can
too.
so we're all different. But if I hear it from somebody and we talk about it,
Mm.
I think there's a lot of power in that for a lot of people.
Yeah, so I found that quite interesting. Um, Another thing I found really interesting is, have you heard, do you know why they call it monarch mind control?
As opposed to why it's the monarch butterfly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they got it from obviously the monarch butterfly, and because of the fact that it can pass down information genetically to its
yeah,
offspring.
yeah.
Incredible. And so they've learnt off animals that humans can also do the same thing. So yeah, there's a lot. Once you start digging, there's just so much information that I guess this knowledge that they have that
Mhm.
we're not taught in schools because we're not supposed to be.
No, because you're just a monkey fish frog that comes from nothing, and this
Yeah.
Earth just came from a big bang of nothing, and there's no purpose and meaning to anything. And truth is whatever we decide it is, and it doesn't matter. And not what you decide, but what the people above
Mm,
decide, who are really our rulers. Even though they say they're public servants, they're really your rulers,
mm,
but they don't tell you that and give you full disclosure. So while they're being your rulers, you've got to remember that they work for you, but they don't
that's right.
really.
That's
You know,
right.
that's
I got a question. Before when we were talking about fear and also speaking out, did you ever? I know because I've been experiencing that throughout the last sort of 10 months. I experienced some fear in speaking out, and then I go over that hurdle, and then I continue on, and I become stronger. But lately, I've been getting sort of these, firstly, dreams, and what I feel that are spiritual attacks, like these. I don't know. Have you ever experienced that?
all the time. When you're going up against
Right.
evil,
Yeah.
evil's a spirit. It's
Yeah.
not. It inspires people and the people that are evil are the ones that are inspired by evil. The people that are
Mm,
good are the ones that are inspired by good. And it's interesting that when you go up against something that's very, very evil, you'll find all sorts of terrible things will happen. Even like physical things too. Like you have like I've had my photos of my children sent to me when we're doing a lot of the work over in Arizona, and threats on my children. I've had things like my plumbing all concreted in, and the plumbers have come out and said this is ridiculous. No one would do this, and it only affected my house. So things like
wow.
this happen as well, because you've got to remember that people's minds, that's where the temple of the spiritual world is. That's where all your thoughts are. That's where, so you can have love and be inspired by that, and be inspired by mercy, kindness, goodness, faith, courage, confidence, conviction, or you can be inspired by hatred, cruelty, and all of the depravity. And that's what a lot of there's a lot of people out there that are being, because we're the sum of our thoughts. So if they're constantly projecting an idea into our minds, even if it might not be directly, but indirectly, an idea that if you are depraved and you are selfish and you are, all about you, you can achieve a lot in this world. Which is interesting, because that's what Jesus said, my kingdom's not of this world. And he said, the kingdom of God's within you, and my kingdom's not of this world. So this world isn't a good place. It's a place of chaos, and there's, people have the ability to make their own choices, good or bad. And it's a war. We're literally in a big war of ideas. And
distractions.
Well, of course, because it's got to because anyone that might have the conscience to go and do something good, if we can distract them for half of their life or all of their life or all of their life, we don't have to deal with that one enemy, because we're the righteous people are the enemy of the wicked, right? There's only two powers, good and evil. That's what's going to war, and it's got various different faces. As we're we don't have obviously the algorithms and the social media platforms, with the algorithms, and we don't have the mainstream media and all the rest of it, but we have the truth, which is very powerful. So if we're not distracted and we were out there speaking and being, doing like a missionary work to teach people the truth of who we are, why we're here, and who those psychopaths are, we would win it. But so many of us are distracted. They're watching things like, watching The Block, I want to get my house built. I want to go on my holiday. I want to go to the pub, and I want to watch my footy, and then you've got the other people that are just, I just want money, and I'm gonna work for those people because they want to get, the status and standing in this world to be high in society.
And the ultimate distraction is from the self. And it's sometimes a scary process going within, because you actually have to face everyone's got a shadow part to themselves. I know I have, and I've had to go in, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but usually, actually all the time, when I've been able to face that, anything in the external world is not as scary. Which it's the answers and the truth is always really simple, but we complicate it.
Well, the thought precedes the action. So the spiritual world is the world of thought. It's where the thoughts come from. Thoughts are not just electrical signals in your brain. You think about, that they convince us of that. Remember, the education for the lower class must be of the poorest sort. Oh, just electrical signals in your brain. That's crazy. I can experience love, power, all of these amazing things in my mind. You can even see things before they happen from time to time, right? So how could that be if it's just electrical signals? But that's what we're taught, right? So the spiritual world is in here. So the thought will always precede the action, which is why the enemy has to bombard our minds with destructive thoughts of fear, hatred, selfishness, all the racist stuff. That's all created deliberately to get us hating each other. That's all it is. The people that claim to be, standing up for race and all the rest of it are the ones that are promoting those ideas and putting into people's minds.
That's it. Let's move on. I noticed on your website as well that you have something around Project Millstone.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So Project Millstone comes from it's from a Bible verse where it says, Jesus says, if you harm the little children, it'll be better that a millstone were tied around your neck and you're cast into the sea. So it's a very, especially in these circles, it's a popular image amongst people that have a biblical sort of mindset. So I was aware of obviously the child abuse happening, institutional child abuse. I was aware of the Heiner affair, the Mulligan inquiry, and I was even in the Liberal Party for 4 years as a delegate trying to do something about the Safe Schools program, because I had to go through it to learn that they're two wings of the same bird. And I discovered a few things there. And I actually ran a policy motion as a delegate to open up a child to reopen the Mulligan inquiry, the Heiner affair, which implicate high, well, not just high level, but just people that were in the political sphere that were using their position to get access to children, and to reinvestigate and do a thorough investigation of the Wood Royal Commission. And I went to debate my own motion in front of hundreds of people at the State Council, and Robert Clark, who was the former Attorney General, who was the president of the Liberal Party at that State Liberal Party at the time, just started screaming at me, "Get him out of here! Get him out of here! Security, security!" I've heard people get up there and talk about the most ridiculous, stupid things, and they've listened. And I was trying to debate my own motion, which I have a right to do, and they got security to get me out.
Wow.
So you see that there's something systemic in this system that enables these people to have the power, and it's obvious that they do these satanic rituals as like a type of I guess initiation, just like gangs.
Yeah.
Gangs do initiations to get in. There's certain gangs that if you've got to kill someone to get in, or you've got to do horrible things to people. And this is the worst type of gang. When you've got former premiers of Victoria whose all of their children have orders out against them and they can't be alone with their grandkids. Like, what's that all about? And you've got people coming out saying that their children were abused by that same former former premier of Victoria at a Glen Iris daycare. You've got other people saying that Raina Michelson talking about that same politician being abusing children at a Mornington daycare. And then I go and get people that I know that are that work in the courts, and they've done a bit of research, and they've said, yeah, that case exists, but there's no names on the case, so we can't find anything. But no one went to jail for that case, but there was children that were abused. And then I know people I know one person whose son was abused at one of those daycares as well. And another one, and also a mother of a daughter who was abused about 30 years ago from one of those daycares as well. So it's absolutely accurate. It's real. This as to what these alleged conspiracy theorist people say. You've got Fiona Barnett, people like that. What they're saying is true. It's real, but everything, you're blocked in every angle. How do you get this out? I mean, if you start to get any momentum against these people, you'll get sued. You'll potentially have, your house taken. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Alex Jones thing, which could be just theatre, but the fact that they want to, for saying something that wasn't, the Sandy Hook thing wasn't true, like they want him to pay like billions of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. If that is either is true, or that's more of the theatre to make people scared that, see what could happen to you, see how much power they have.
Yeah.
Look at how disproportionate that is. He says something and then they want to take billions of dollars off him. You say something and they'll put you in jail. Like, I had a friend that she was sued, I think it was for $100,000 for a Facebook post that somebody else put on her Facebook page calling someone a pedophile. Yeah.
Yikes.
But the pedophiles get found guilty, they don't have to pay $100,000.
Of course not.
No. And this is what seems so ridiculous about it, so disproportionate.
Yeah.
That this is what happened. So yeah, anyway, the Project Millstone sort of started because we were, my friend Dave and I became very aware of what was happening. We wanted to get in and do something, because if you're a man or a woman of conscience, you're driven by that conscience. And if you know something, if you've got information and you can't do anything with it, but it's something that you know inside, I have to do something, it's going to eat away at you. So we started Project Millstone when we went over to America, to Arizona, and we were working with a group called the Veterans on Patrol, with a guy named Louis Arthur Mayer, and he ran a church, and he used to run a ministry looking for veterans in Arizona. This is right down south near the border, out of Tucson, Arizona, and he would house them and help them, because there's a lot of veterans. Because basically in the US, if you're in the military, they've got so many people that are veterans over there. They just get used and abused, and they get left, and they're stuck. They're stuffed. got a missing leg, or their brain's not right because they've been shot at, or they've seen their friends die. So anyway, so he was doing that, and what they found was there were these underground, like bunkers that weren't big enough for a grown up man or woman, but you could fit children in there, and they were you could lock them from the outside but not from the inside, and there were kids' toys in them. Then they found a child's skull decomposing there. Then they called the police out. The police did an investigation. They said, "Oh, yep, we're going to do an investigation in this area." And this particular area was on property owned by a big company called CMEX. Now, that big company was one of the a company that funds the Clinton Foundation, big funder of the Clintons.
Yeah.
And they the next day, all this earth moving machinery came and just cleaned up the whole area, even though they were meant to be doing a police investigation. So these guys have all of that evidence there, but it's a matter of how do you get this evidence out, because everyone's corrupt. And have a guess what the mayor of Tucson's name was back then?
What?
Mayor Jonathan Rothschild.
Haha.
I kid you not. And then, of course, he claims that he's not part of that family.
Yeah.
That's interesting because he seems to be of the same ilk.
Mm.
And then the police, there was a police, the chief of police was brought in from, what's that other town called in California? San Francisco. And he was brought in, and they brought all of these new police in, and they completely changed the police force in Tucson. And there was one of the sheriffs from the Sheriff Napier from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and these are all people that are working together to shut down the child trafficking routes,
right.
and the big business over there. So what we were doing, we're working with all these veterans, and this is the beautiful thing about the USA, especially Arizona, which has it's a very loose gun state. If there's missing children, we can all just get guns and just go looking for them. Let's get 100 people together. Yep, we're going to look for these kids. So what they were doing is we're going up onto in these areas where a lot of the American Indian people they had their land as well nearby to this other area where they were trafficking. Sorry about the noise. My children are really loud, and they know that I'm on this call, but they're still doing it. And they were telling us that there's a lot of traffic moving through here, right? At this region. So what we're doing is we were watching and staking out from different hills, different mountains, and we saw that there was a bit of a light show would go on. So what would happen is you would get like three things. You get like flashing light, and there would be light on and then off. That's the three signals. And what we would do is we would see the light on, which we worked out is when they're traveling, when they're coming through, and flashing is like warning. And then because what we'd do is we'd send a car, would radio, and would send a car, and a car would go down in these remote areas, and then they would all of a sudden the flashing would go, and then it would be off. Right, so we worked out that's how they're doing it, and there's all of these backpacks and these water bottles, these black water bottles everywhere in the wilderness. There, you just see them, and there's no tags on them as to who's making these bags, and they're the exact same type of bag. And we just saw all of these crazy things, and we just that the trafficking is going on, whether or not it's all children. I would say it's not, because it's a big business. I mean, in the US, I know that they traffic drugs out of Mexico into the US, and they traffic guns out of the US into Mexico, and then children going both ways. People going. People. You got people working that are being trafficked in there as well. But it is horrendous. Like when you see the mass scale of it, and that there's children that are being taken. There was also another guy. Craig Sawyer, who we were following some of his stuff before we left to go and work with the veterans on patrol. And he was saying, yep, this is all legit. These are child trafficking. And then he backflipped and said, no, it's all fake. There's nothing here. So we rang up the other guy, Lewis Arthur. He said, hey, look, Craig Sawyer is saying this is just, it's all crap. And he said, come over here. You'll see yourself. Just get here. And we got there, and it wasn't crap. Like they are trafficking mass numbers of people through there, so you would know that they're definitely trafficking children as well. And then I found out that Craig Sawyer, who runs a Vets for Child Rescue, his own daughter has come out saying that he's an abuser. He used to be a bodyguard for the Clintons as well.
Hmm.
It's interesting, right? When you see all these connections.
Connections, yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up getting we ended up leaving.
Mhm.
I went and stayed with a friend up in northern Idaho, who's got a ministry up there. And before I left, and sort of shared the story of what was happening down there. Then I came back to Australia, and then I got death threats from people who I assume are from over there, saying they're like photos. They just took photos of my children from Facebook and said, "We've got people everywhere," you know. And it was nasty. Then we had dead animals. I had dead animals left at the front of my house, and obviously that stuff doesn't worry me. That to me, it gives me more confidence that I'm on the money, because I know God, and I know that if you're doing that, you've got nothing else. That's all you've got.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I went to go back to the US with the family for a family holiday, and I got I got about a day and a half earlier, sort of before the flight. I just went to check on my visa, and I was blocked from being able to enter the country.
Wow.
So anyway, I got a friend of mine who knows a lot of people, knows some people in Homeland Security, and my friend said, "Did you say this about this man?" I said, "I did in an article, yes." And
Mhm.
because I'd spoken about who these people were and what they're doing in the US in a US newspaper, and I did a couple of videos. Actually, I did a video with that Fiona Barnett actually shared, and there was a couple of articles as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, they blocked me and they called me a radical.
Wow.
And they did the same thing to my mate Dave Armstrong when he went to go at a similar time. I think it was a little bit after, a little bit before.
Mhm.
I went to go to the US again. He was going over for a Red Pill event to speak, because he's on the board for Empower Movement. And same thing happened to him. He was unable to return to the US.
Incredible, the power that and the strings that they can pull just like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I actually attended, you reminded me, because I attended a banquet called for Destiny Rescue. I don't know if you've heard of them. They also go overseas and they rescue children.
I think I do know of them. Are they Australian based?
Yes, yeah,
I
and
think I met one of the guys that works for them. He's in Queensland though.
right.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because obviously they showed videos about what they did, actually going into those clubs and pretending to be the what do you call it? What's the word?
Pedophiles?
Pedophiles. Yes. Sorry. Just
Oh, you could have just
and
said minor attracted person.
yeah. Sorry, got it wrong. Anyway, so we saw all these videos and it was quite eye-opening. And the first thing I said to them after, in the little break, I went up. Actually, I asked 4 different people the same question. I said, "This is great that you guys are doing that, and I want to support. But what are you guys doing anything in Australia? Because there's a massive issue in Australia." 2 of them didn't know that there was a big issue in Australia. They were completely like oblivious to it. And the other 2, the one lady said to me, "Yes, I am aware. However, because of the laws in Australia and with the Australian Federal Police, we're not allowed to do any of this work here." Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's really hard to do anything, because you don't understand that these are the elite people
Mm,
doing those things here. You know that. I mean, if you believe the stuff that Fiona says, and I do,
mhm,
they have like fly in, fly out areas where they do these pedo parties. You know, those elite circles. It's like that's the entertainment, messing around with the kids.
mhm.
I mean, you look at the Queen, for instance, the Queen, and then now the King. Who is his best mate? Jimmy Savile. Jimmy
Of course.
Savile, after he died, police had uncovered these horrendous evidence of him abusing over 500 children in the vilest way. Another convicted pedophile is Rolf Harris. He was another one that was knighted by them.
Yeah.
You know, the son, Andrew is potentially, because you've got to say that, because you can't
Can't.
defamation.
Yeah.
But he's hanging out with those people.
Yeah.
He did a little rebuttal piece to his the alleged claims that he was a pedophile, and he didn't do himself any justice.
Mm.
So who do you think these people are? Like they're not.
They're in a
Any.
club. They're in a club,
It's a
and
club, and we're the poorest sort. We're like the animals, and
yeah.
they can do whatever they like to the animals because we're nothing. Then, and you know what it is? They are the basest of people who have the least integrity and honor. And for that reason, that they put on a huge show on the outside. Look at what we are. Look at how we talk. We're fantastic people, but they've got nothing inside.
Mm.
Nothing is, because if you had anything inside, there's no way you could do these vile crimes to children, but they do. And this is what they're into. And I don't know if all of them are into it, because I reckon there's probably a whole lot of people that aren't really into it, but they want power. And they
Mhm.
know, well, I've got to be in that club and doing these things to, if you believe any of what Isaac Cappy was saying about Hollywood,
Mhm.
this is where we keep the kids, this is what we do. And if you want to, you want to go up in the industry, you got to do this stuff as well. So
And you
that's,
met him, right?
yeah, he stayed with us for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at my gym. He ran an event at the gym where he basically showed us. We couldn't film it or anything, but I've got some photos
Yeah.
of him, with us, and look, he was messed up from it all. Really good guy, really good guy. He actually trained with us too. He was, because we had the gym, and he's like, oh, I can fight, and not really, but he was all right. Like he had a crack, but yeah, but he talked about it. He said, "This is what's happening." I know it's happening. I know that my uncle's case, when he was abused in care as a child, horrendously, it's taken him, forever to get any justice. And he's not going to get justice. Another friend of mine, um, he was abused in a boarding school that he went to out in
Mhm.
Gippsland, and I just don't want to give anything away about him, because but I know I can share it without sharing any details about him. But he ended up getting a payout in the end. Like he's older now. He's older than me. Of nearly $1 million, which is paid for by insurance too. It's an
Right.
insurance. So the Catholic Church, that was a Catholic boarding school. The Catholic Church has taken out an insurance policy for the liability of child abusers. Now think about that. That's like saying, look, I'm a bank robber, but what I'll do is I'll take out an insurance policy, so if I get caught, the insurance will pay for the money I tried to steal. Right? That's how ridiculous it is. So, but he said to me, he said, Nick, I had it good. The orphan children. This is what he said. What happened with the orphan kids? He said the local pedophile would come in and pay a whole lot of money to the priest, and that child would be given to the pedo for the holidays, right? So they're like pimps with children.
Mm.
That's who they are. But they appear to be high society, classy people, but they're just pimps with children.
Mm. Um, I yeah, it is a terrible thing to hear constantly, these stories, but we've got to, for me, it's just finding a way to process it and keep moving forward, because I know for me, I can't allow. Yeah, it's terrible and it's heartbreaking to hear these things, and it makes me want to cry. Like, that's how I feel. But I have to keep pushing forward, because who's going to speak up for these kids? And so moving on, I want to actually show you a video, because how we spoke about just before the show about Gracie Hughes and what happens to people when they try to help. And this is not to put fear into people, but what we're up against, guys, because this is a serious issue in Australia that a lot of people aren't even aware of. The police actually working alongside these criminals. And I was watching a video, an interview with Max Egan and Craig, who's a human rights ambassador for tribal nations across Australia, and his wife, Juliet. They went out and try to help Laura and Gracie. And basically, if people don't know the story, uh, uh, Gracie was getting abused by her father. There is audio recordings. There's a lot of information, which I won't go into now, but if you want to research it, obviously you can. And what happened was they made the mother look crazy, and then she was incapable to look after Gracie, and then they took the child away from her. She still doesn't have her back. and put her back into the care of the father who is abusing her. Now, and what happened after that? They tried to, so Laura got the child back. They tried to, this bit I'm not 100% sure about, but they were getting help with this lady Juliet, right? So what happened was that the police in the Northern Territory did a nationwide search. I think there was like 1,800 police searching for them, and they came across. They went into their property, and I'll show you this video, Nick, because this is what we're up against. Hold on, I just load it up. Hopefully, this gives some context to the video. Here we go. Hold on a sec. Can you hear that?
And they had come around to see their auntie. And so these guys broke through the fences and they smashed down the doors, they smashed windows.
This is Craig.
They were fully armed. There was no arms on the property. We don't have any arms. We have signs out the front, trespass notices. We also have embassy signs and no weapon signs allowed on the property.
Undercover cop cars. And this is when they were on the search for Gracie.
Why are you masked up? Can you please identify yourself? Can you please identify yourself? What are you doing harassing these people? Craig!
You're welcome, gentlemen, but if you do any, you'll be detained under the warrant.
Craig!
What are you doing?
Craig!
I'm not resisting!
Put your hand behind your back.
Craig!
Do it now.
You're on it, mate.
Craig!
You're on my back. What took you force?
Why are they wearing bandanas?
Very rude. Please stop hitting my arm. Please help me up.
It's all on camera, Jen.
I will cooperate, but that was really forceful. Hanging myself and my arm is sore, my right arm sore.
Just sit there, don't move. Put your feet out in front of you.
That was really forceful. I was doing a welfare check. Why are you harassing these people?
Craig!
Who are you? What's your name? Where's your ID? That was really uncalled for. Just doing a welfare check. Oh. Have a water, please? Very dry. That was really forceful. How... What's this all for, fellas? Are you recording this? Yeah, come on. There's no weapons.
So they've just breached international law. They came in, they assaulted my wife, they assaulted her friend, they threatened and just, you know, like, can you imagine these little boys? You know what I mean? These men running around.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts about watching that?
Well, they're not police. Police, you know, a policeman or woman's job is to keep the peace. That's not what they're doing. And this kind of policing is not policing. You know, you got the port squads and all those kinds of anti-riot squads. They're not real police either. And these guys, like, they wouldn't identify themselves. Okay, well, they have an obligation to do that. They're not going to do that. They just kicked in the door. They had no warrant. They had no reasonable grounds, so they couldn't have had any statutory powers. I mean, the High Court, you know, which you would think would be the highest law in this land, you know, the High Court rulings would take precedence over the legislation in most cases, says that it says that when a statute or an act, which is where the police get their powers from, prescribes that there must be reasonable grounds for a state of mind, including suspicion and belief. So if they believed that there was a crime being committed, had suspicion to have reasonable grounds, it says it requires the existence of facts which are sufficient to induce that state of mind in a reasonable person. So where were the facts that an offence was being committed? Or where are the facts for the suspicion to establish reasonable grounds for them to act on whatever act that gives them those powers, and then to not be able to even explain to that woman what the grounds were? They have an obligation to tell you you're under arrest for, or you're being detained for, you know, whatever you've committed this offence. You need to be told what offence you've committed, and you need to be told the facts. We believe that you are committing this offence because we saw you do X, Y, and Z. They didn't do any of it, so that's not policing. That is not policing. And even if they were, you know, potentially, police officers fully ordained by the state or territory, if they're operating and acting in such a manner and their conduct is such, they're not police anymore. They just broke the law. It's really clear. The problem is, the law isn't really for them. Okay, it applies to us, because if you've got lots of money, you can pretty much get out of anything. Get out of murder. You can get out of it, because the law doesn't seem to work for people who have the money. That's what defines the different class from our class. We're the plebs down the bottom, but the plebs are catching up. Okay, so they might have all this knowledge and all this secrecy, but the reason that they're acting like that actually is very inspiring to me, because it means that they're getting worried that they're willing to do things that are exposing who and what they are to the wider audience. So more and more people, a lot of people saw that video. That's a start. Now we've got a lot of people sort of red pilled as to this horrible crime that's happening, and now they're going to do a deep dive, and then they're going to start speaking and inspire more people, and that's going to cause these kinds of corrupt, evil people to do more and more of the same, which will then be used to expose their dark works. So a really good Bible verse, it says, "Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose it." We're meant to expose it, and by us just pushing and speaking and being really active and in defense of our brothers and sisters, what happens is they have to then hide and cover up all of their dark works, and then we film it and we share it, and people see it and they go, "Oh, what's going on there? That's not right." They had all balaclavas. Why do they have balaclavas for? Why weren't they identifying themselves? If they're police, they've got to do that. And how come they didn't tell the woman what she had done wrong, what offence she'd committed? And how come they just use force without, that, which is a human rights violation too, in international law, and I know in like even in Victoria we have the Human Rights Charter, which it's just an exact copy, well, not an exact but very close copy to the
UN.
The UN,
Charter,
which is we're meant to be following that charter as well. And when you're arrested or detained, you're meant to be told at the time of the arrest and detention for the reason of the arrest and detention. I didn't see them tell her why she had been arrested at the time that she was arrested or detained. They just violently assaulted her. And you see how they were screaming at her, "Stop resisting, stop resisting." That's a standard thing they do.
Right.
You're not resisting. They just say it to make it look so they can charge you with resist arrest.
Right.
Because they use charge stacking, because there's a whole mechanism behind controlling people. So what they do is they'll charge you with all of these things, and you look at it and you go, "I didn't do any of these things." And then they'll threaten you with this. Well, you know, we're going to charge you with all these things. Or you can plead guilty to these lesser ones and we'll remove the other ones. So they use the charge stacking up of all these charges as a mechanism to get you to plead guilty to something you didn't do. And that way they still hold the, you know, the higher position, I guess. You know, it's very hard for you to pursue them if you've pleaded guilty and you've admitted guilt to something, even if you haven't done it.
It's incredible. Like my mind goes to who are these people? And obviously they are people that complete left brain, just like, well, they're essentially slaves because they're taking orders from above. And something as well that you spoke about in your webinar, you talked about the police and their relationship to the government and how they, the actual relationship. And you talked about, maybe you can just go over that a little bit, because you talked about the etymology of the word religion.
Well, it's a religious order. Like they're religious. So religion means legion, a legion, re again, and legion. So that's what it is. And it comes from the word religier. The word religier is where we get the word allegiance and the word religion. And allegiance is your allegiance to something based on an oath, and religion is essentially the same. It's a legion. When you make an oath of allegiance, you become part of a legion. So religion, that's why these words are connected. So that's why they have their religious symbols often on their, you know, you see the upside down pentagrams, like in our Victoria Police have that. They have all these, the checkerboard things. It's all symbolic. It means something. I mean, I've gone into the police station. I've asked them. I said, "What does this mean?" And they don't know, but someone would know because someone's put it together and designed it that way. So it is a religion, and what a religion is, as opposed to say like faith, religion is groupthink. And just doing what your masters tell you. So in religion, and I'm not a religious guy. I go to church now. I've been going to this other church that's really good. I run a ministry myself. I've been in and out of churches my whole life from sort of my youth. But you'll find that in religious types follow the rules and they do what their leaders tell them to do. And when you ask them, what do you like? If I ask you, what do you believe, Julia, about something, you could tell me what you believe. But if you're religious, I'm not saying like having faith, religious. And I said, what do you believe? You'd probably speak in the plural and say, well, we believe this. Or we believe this. And that's groupthink. It's a groupthink mentality. So that's what these police officers are. They're not the most intelligent people. The ones that would commit these kinds of crimes, they're just told to do something. Oh, yeah, you can do it. It's like, I don't know if you've heard of the Milgram experiment.
I have.
Yeah, so you've got people after World War II. They did this experiment to see if they could get people to basically commit similar crimes to what the Nazis allegedly did. You know, because I don't know whether the Nazis did them exactly the way we're told, because I don't know of history. But I know that they did do all of these crimes. So what they found is that if people believe that you had authority, people would continue to do what they're told based on your authority that they assume based on what you're wearing, and would continue to do whatever it is that they're asked to do, to the point of killing somebody. And there's videos of it where they're administering this electric shock. It's like a memory experiment. They're saying, so there's this man who's an actor that's getting electric shocks, little electric shocks, and it's meant to help with his recall. And then there's like a doctor figure who's like got the authority. And he's saying, okay, ask the question. And they'll ask the question to the guy that's on the other side of the screen. And when he gets it wrong, the doctor will say, okay, give him the shock. And the man who's having the experiment done on him, who doesn't know this is an experiment,
that's right,
turns it up and it shocks the guy. And they keep upping it. And what they tell the guy that's doing the electric shocks is that, you know, this is going to help these people to memorize things. And the actor that's getting electric shocks, they're upping it and upping the shock until it ends up killing him. And you've got the people that are doing the shock, even though it's not real, saying, I don't want to kill that man. You know, I don't want to kill that man. And then the doctor figure goes, that's okay. We'll accept liability for that. You just keep going. And they found that about 70% of people would go all the way.
It's incredible.
To killing someone because someone in authority told them that they had the authority and that they'd be liable. Isn't that horrendous? So they've mapped out what's in our minds and where our weaknesses are. We're definitely weak to being, and that's, I think, why we've got these beautiful Bible verses such as, you know, we're not meant to be respecters of persons. Persons means a persona, someone that's got this face that looks like, that's the judge, or we're meant to judge. The other one that I really like is judge not on the appearance, but judge righteous judgment, which is where we get the saying, judge not on the, don't judge a book by its cover.
cover. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
because if we look at someone and go, well, he's a police officer, so he'd know his stuff, he must have done the right thing. The other guy must be wrong. That's not true. You don't know unless you saw what happened. You got some guy getting bashed up by the police. He must have done the wrong thing because the police are bashing him. Well, hang on. How do you know the police aren't just bashing him because they're crims and they're violent thugs? We judge off these preconceived ideas that have been planted into our minds through the education system, mind you, that teaches us to respect authority. Authority is good. Your public servants care about you. They're there to serve you, and your vote counts. The council's public servants, they care about you. But if you don't pay them that money that they claim, they're going to take your house off you. But it's for your own good because they care about you.
Of course they do. And those of us who have been in attending rallies, even through lockdowns, like myself, I've seen what they're capable of. I have been fortunate enough to not being physically hurt, but I've been very close, been shot at and all that sort of stuff. These people are not people that are there for the people. They do not serve the people. You've seen it, obviously, being assaulted by the police yourself, and it's a really hard pill to swallow. But constantly sharing the truth, speaking the truth, and educating other people. This is how we move forward, and it's a long road, and I'm in it for the long road, and I think that there's so much darkness around us, but I'm actually really I'm not, how do I say, I'm actually quite excited about what's coming up next, because we're getting stronger. We're educating ourselves. I'm around now throughout my waking up process in the last year or so. I'm surrounded by the most incredible people that I've ever been in my whole life, and people that actually care and want to do something about it instead of just sit on their asses and complain.
Well, distance builds strength, right? You don't go to the gym and get strong without lifting heavy weights and doing the training, right? This is a spiritual training of the human will and the spirit, where we're going through extreme, like pain and suffering psychologically, and we're finding out how to overcome it, and we're realizing that what happens here precedes the actions, and if I'm strong here, I'm strong here. And that's what's going to continue to happen. So it's a real blessing to have the psychopaths do this whole COVID situation, to us, because it's woken a lot of us up, and a lot of us don't care about, do whatever you like. To me, I'm going to still be using my light to shine on your dark deeds, and I'm going to keep speaking. What are you going to lock us all up and put us in jail and we're going to cave somewhere and hide us? You're going to kill us all? I think
beat us up to death. Like, you were on that webinar, you had a guy named Zev, I think. Zev, yeah. He talked about how he got violently bashed by the police. And I was just in awe of his conviction and dedication to not giving him the information that they wanted. You guys have to jump on Lawful Me, by the way. There's some incredible information. But maybe you can tell the story better than I can, but
well, he wouldn't stop. So he discovered that he kept getting arrested at the rallies, because he was protesting, like 20 years ago, and he was in the police station, little dinky tiny police station, and one of the sergeants says, "Look, Zev, we've got to do some real police work. Look, we're going to leave you here. Just don't touch anything. We'll be back soon." So while they were gone, because he's obviously not a criminal, right? So they were doing real police work. They even said it themselves. He sees this manual on the table of on the desk, and he starts reading it. It's got his name, his mate's name in there, and it talks about how to use the bail as a way to shut down the protests. So remember, police are meant to be there to keep the peace, but what they're doing is they're using the system, the bail, by charge stacking people with multiple charges. Once you're charged with multiple charges, they can then set bail, and then they can put on the bail conditions. And the conditions they can put on there could be, you can't attend rallies. You can't go within this distance of this particular place because because of these conditions. Even though the charges were completely made up, there was no actual offence. So he uncovered this, became aware of it, started speaking out about it, and because he wouldn't relent, the police actually bashed him really badly in a police station. But he kept saying, yeah, come on, mate, my grandma hits harder than that, and they bashed him, proper bashed him. And he ends up saying, "You'll never break me. I won't quit. I'm never going to quit." And then they realised there's no point in even bashing him. It's just a waste of energy. This guy's just not going to quit. So there's this really good saying my coach, because I was a professional fighter, that's what I did. And he said to me, he goes, "Nico, quitters don't win, winners don't quit. Okay, we never quit." And then he would say, "You could have picked tennis, but you chose fighting. You could have chose ballet dancing, but you chose fighting." You should always say that you chose this. So this is what it is. It's painful. It's hard. So you can't just complain about it in the dark moment. So look, if we've chosen to be of the truth, there's blessings attached to that, but there's also a responsibility, and there's something that's expected of us. We need to let it shine, and the way we let it shine is by doing and speaking the truth, so people see it and it resonates with them, and that plants the seed in their mind of the truth. That's how you plant it in there, in that spiritual world. People see it, they perceive it, they think about it, they go, "I like that. That edifies me. That's powerful. I want to do that." And you empower people. The enemy doesn't do that. They diminish them. They fill them with fear and doubt, so that their confidence and their faith go to nothing. We can do the opposite and show them. But we've got to show them. We've got to be it. You can't just say it. You've got to actually be it and do it.
100%. Nick, it's been a fantastic hour chatting with you. I feel inspired. I've been watching your stuff and for a little while, and guys, I highly recommend subscribing to the Lawful Me platform. The webinars that you guys are doing together, it's really great information. And I walk away every time I sit down for a couple of hours just having a listen. It's just some really great information. And because I've obviously thought myself, like I've been really lucky that I've just slipped through the cracks and not been stopped by police. Sort of like, I've got so many funny stories, but the point is I've been very lucky, but I would not know what to say. Like, do they have the right to detain me? Do they have the right to ask me for ID? That sort of stuff I'm still learning, which you guys go through on the platform as well, right?
Yeah. The whole idea behind it is not to, there's a lot of platforms out there that claim to teach people about the law and their rights, but they, and there's some good ones out there, but there's many of them that just want you to become a slave to whoever's teaching. Follow my process and you will become free. But the idea is we want people to be empowered with not just the knowledge of how the system's meant to operate, but the system of how the system really does operate, because it's not consistent with what the law says and prescribes in the legislation, but also being empowered, like to believe in yourself, to back yourself. If you've studied it out in your mind and this is right, don't quit halfway because it's tough. Go the whole way. He who endures to the end shall be saved, which is a really good Bible verse that I often think about when you're in these, like I've got 2 trials coming up in the county court for doing no wrong. Right. But one of them I've got 23 charges. I didn't do any of them. And the footage is so clear. It's black and white clear what happened. But they're still pursuing it. Now, why are they pursuing it? Is it ignorance, or is it just, they can keep me on the bail conditions, which my original bail conditions were I couldn't even speak about the government, the police, the law, the COVID pandemic, the show directions anywhere. What has that got to do with my allegedly assaulting police that never really happened and resisting arrest? Well, it has nothing to do with it. It's just that they wanted to, they put me in jail. They put me in jail for defending my mate. After the police were belting him up, and the footage shows that. And there was a whole bunch of us that ran in to help him, but only one of us went to jail. It was me. So they reserve the best treatment for their favorite people. But you know what? Not everybody's meant to be like the tip of the spear and ram their head into the enemy. Some people have got to be back with got the archers firing. Other people are getting supplies. We've got to work together. and just not quit. Find out what your genius is and be that, and help go. And I like the principle, that the biblical principle of let he who is great be your servant. And he means he or she. It's archaic, right? Be the servant. So if you've got a skill or a gift or an ability, go and use it, and go and join with people and say, we're here, I'm here to help. What do you need? This is what I can offer. How can I help? And then that's how we're being part of the solution.
That's fantastic, Nick. Thank you so much again for joining us. And yeah, I guess might see each other at some point in the future. Yeah, take it easy.
I have to say one thing. If anyone wants to follow me on Telegram, because that's the only place that I can be now, because I've been kicked off every other social media platform. It's t.me/fight corrupt police.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I have to, because my friend Karen said, make sure you're telling about the program. So
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Julie. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. All right, and thank you, everyone. See you later, Nick. I'll just pop you back in that green room. Take it easy.
See ya.
And thanks, everyone, for watching tonight. It's been really good to to have you guys. Please share this video out there. We'll be uploading it up to BitChute and Rumble afterwards. And yeah, have a good night, guys. Bye.